And welcome back to Stories from the River. This is your host, Charlie Malouf, and we are on the third part of our series from our GMRX, the story of Broad River Retail, the topic of monthly budgets explained, our version of the great game of business, or how we play the game. So if you haven't listened to the first two episodes that we dropped last week, you may want to go ahead and do that now. And then I'm going to pick right up from episode 2 on today's episode, which will be going more in depth on the story of Dash. It's the sub-brand for our delivery service, delivery assembly service in her home or in your home. And so it's an acronym for really a white glove level service, as opposed to dropping a box off your front door, because what we have to do when we go in and bring heavy furniture and set it up or install it or get it right in the room or take it upstairs to the room of your choice, or set up the power base or the reclining furniture, motion furniture. There's a little bit more to it than just dropping a box off at the doorstep. So we go through that part, and then we move right into kind of the year of 2016 with our first rudimentary budget and how we kind of won 2016 and what that really taught us about budgeting, and then really go into like the architecture of modern day budgeting. The architect of that, our modern day budget, was Bill Woodman, who heads our finance department. And we talked about really what budgeting does for us, and it allows us to really kind of have that delta from our spend to really that stretch goal or stretch target of what we think we can achieve. But it's really kind of a conservative, like what high degree of confidence to more moderate and target for an annual budgeting process, and all the work that kind of goes into that. And that delta between the conservative and the moderate budget, which creates kind of really what I call the lagniappe, or the delta, the spoils. And it's not a really big percentage, but that's really where the magic happens. So we kind of talk through that, we explain that, and take you through the rest of the story about how we kind of go through budgets and the process of building that muscle to plan versus the plan itself. Because the plan, once it's published, can become obsolete. But it's really the discipline and the ability to really have predictable financial results through that muscle that you continue to use and exercise of planning, of budgeting, of forecasting, and getting better and better at that, and becoming a learning machine, a learning organization as it comes to forecasting and budgeting and planning. And so that's really what it's all about. We don't get it all the way right all the time, and really that's not the goal. The goal is to kind of continue to kind of learn from those places where you get it wrong into different type of micro and macro environments and turbulence that you might have, whether it's a COVID year, a pandemic year, or tariffs, or supply chain issues, or inflation, whatnot. Whatever is thrown at you is to be in the best position to be able to tackle that, to plan for that, to forecast it. And from a solid base and budget, you can then kind of do forecasts and iterate off of that. So this will conclude the full talk, and then we'll come back with episode 4 will be the Q&A session we had after the talk.
Welcome to Stories from the River, a show in which we go behind the scenes at Broad River Retail.
Can I tell you a story about Dash? It's one of my favorite stories of the company. I love telling the story and how it came about and what it meant for the company. It's a great microcosm for us. Prior to the bold reset, our delivery income percentage was maybe 3 to 4%. Let that sink in. And we didn't pay commissions on delivery either. Keep that in mind. Our mindset was that we were happy if we just broke even on delivery or didn't lose too much money on it. We just saw it as a cost of doing business. And in looking at it as just a line item of our cost, our mindset had always been to reduce the expense as much as possible. This is what a scarcity mindset is all about. So when we thought we had negotiated a really low-cost contract with UST, our home delivery provider, and would pat ourselves on the back, we didn't really understand what that meant. UST was never going to lose money themselves. They were going to be the low-cost provider. They were going to find motor carriers who would work for the amount that their contract would allow them to pay, which unfortunately meant that you'd get the least desirable delivery drivers in the market, the ones who would accept the least amount, essentially. Laugh, but it's true. Compensation matters. It also may have meant that that there may not be great processes on procuring background checks. We started to understand the yield of how much UST would keep for their administrative costs and overhead compared to how much they would pay to the motor carriers. And I really credit Charlie Workman for really exposing all of this and opening our eyes to all of this. That was his background. This may have contributed to why we had a massive theft ring in the delivery teams. I don't know. But Ashcom and e-commerce was right around the corner. And I'd been on the e-commerce committee at corporate, and we were going to be one of the first licensees in the country to go live with Ashcom. And our current delivery pricing model wasn't going to work. And we're proud of our pricing. That's our model. We're not going to change it. But it wasn't going to work with Ashcom. And so I knew that it would be better to have the same delivery prices online as we had in store. So instead of capping our delivery fees at a certain price and allowing unlimited items to be delivered for something like $199, we retooled the pricing matrix. And that was kind of a magical experience. We took a really deep dive analysis. We put all of our sales into price bands. Like how many did we do at this level, this level, this level? And we did extensive modeling. And this is all like in June 2015. And every analysis kept coming back to suggest how much money we were leaving on the table, how much more we could charge, how much lagniappe would be available, and this whole concept of the spirit of abundance came into play. It seemed crazy, but I just had a mathematically based, research-backed belief that it would work. We could still have the delivery fee scaled down as a percentage of the total purchase price to incentivize larger tickets, because that was the intent of our previous model, but we wouldn't have to give away the farm. We even modeled it initially to where the mattresses could ride for free. There was so much lagniappe in our new pricing structure and data model that we determined that we could be aggressive and not count sleep towards the delivery pricing tiers. Or if someone purchased a mattress set online, then they could be offered free delivery to make us as competitive with mattress stores and mattress retailers like Mattress Firm. We'd reverse engineered how positioning in the marketplace in order to be super competitive with the mattress retailers and to drive the sleep business. But there were a couple of problems that we had to solve first. First, there was no incentive for the sales associates to sell delivery. And remember that I had invested a lot of those hours in reviewing sales every day, so I knew that many times the delivery fee would be what? 0. Yeah, thank you. It would be reduced or discounted or given away. We didn't have a sales audit team at that time. I credit Sean Seals for that idea because they had sales audit department at Hill Country. And by the way, when we measured margins, we only measured margins. We didn't even measure financing fees. But I understood that at the zero moment of truth, every dollar that the customer was paying and how they were paying was negotiable. And I understood that every dollar counted. A dollar collected for delivery counted just as much as a dollar given away for delivery, for a discount. And second thing we had to solve for, the sales associates lacked confidence in the delivery teams. Who could blame them? Heck, you couldn't blame them. So we had delivery success rate in the 60% range amidst all of our myriad of operational inventory, supply chain, and ERP issues. So we were going to replace our delivery provider for the first time since I had been with the company. We were going to agree to actually pay more for delivery. At a time when we were nearly bankrupt, and Workman struck a deal with XPO Last Mile, a company that had sued him less than a year ago when he left them over a non-compete clause, and because he was going to start a 3PL, and they sued him, and that's when he came to work for us. We were the benefactor of that, and he convinced them to believe in us. And got us 60-day payment terms. Why did we need 60-day payment terms? We didn't have any money. So that was another detail that we really needed. We had to extend our runway on cash flow and throttle down our cash burn. So we would rely on XPO to help us improve the delivery experience. But we decided to give everyone on the sales floor a raise remember, cost them their college tuition. So we decided to give everyone on the sales floor a raise by paying commission on delivery. We had modeled it out so that we would have the lagniappe, the abundance to share the spoils. And we needed them to have a vested interest in selling home delivery with conviction just as much as they would sell furniture. Even if we don't make the same margins on delivery than furniture, which is why many retailers didn't and don't believe in paying commission on it, to me, it was just part of the total negotiated price. We would also move to make delivery fees sacrosanct so that they couldn't be modified. If the salesperson was going to negotiate, they needed to do so on the furniture. This would give us better visibility into what our true product margins were. And when we went through all of this, during one of our Change the News meetings, we went through a series of naming ideas for how we could brand this service to help differentiate it. And it was none other than our controller, the previously aforementioned Steve Carey, who said, hey, I've got an idea. How about DASH? And he laid out the acronym. And I instantly loved it. I think we all loved it. It was perfect. This would help us differentiate between something like an Amazon delivery that dropped a box at your doorstep versus what we do, which is really hard work, bringing in heavy items into your home, setting it up, assembling it, removing the cardboard and trash. It's really a true white glove type of full service solution. Why give it away? And isn't this what Mrs. Jones wants anyway? What's your story in the store? Pick it up, right?
Shelby, go ahead.
Mrs. Jones doesn't want the lowest cost provider coming to her home, who may or may not be background checked. She wants a quality individual coming into her home. In the same way that we wouldn't want to have the lowest cost providers on the sales floor, because we believe that the comp plan matters and you get what you pay for, we said the same thing about the motor carriers. We want the best motor carriers in town servicing our account. But we also got wiser about our 3PL contracts too. We don't mind our 3PL provider making a profit on our account. In fact, we want them to. We want a healthy ecosystem with our partners. But we don't want them to make an unfair profit on our account, especially at the expense of service or our guests. So we structure it so that our account will essentially be like a cost-plus arrangement with a healthy and fair yield of what we're going to pay to the population of motor carriers servicing our account. And initially, we paid bonuses to the GMs on Dash, and that was always a short-term idea to kind of ignite it and get us to where we needed to be. We probably did that for 18 months, maybe longer, but at some point, it became cultural and a layup. And the purpose of business bonuses are not to be layups, but to be reserved for above and beyond achievements. So we would replace Dash as a bonus category with something else that drove the business. I think it was probably cowbell. Makes sense? Delivery, assembly, service in her home. Steve Carey came up with Dash. And let me tell you, there was many times we had to stand in the gap when people were saying, well, the world's going to free delivery. You got to have free delivery. Nope, we're not going to do it. Got criticized, got ridiculed, got told I was crazy, got told this is the way the world's going. And I would tell you the Broad River stood in the gap, said, no, we're not going to do it. And we fought it hard. And we probably still have to fight it to some degree. But for now, it seems like we're holding the line on it. Because ultimately, if you give it away, you're going to tuck it into your product. You still have to make that up some way, somehow. Okay, the genesis of budgeting. That's kind of an eye chart there. Apologies for that. So now we're getting into kind of really what you probably want to hear about. I mentioned that in the second half of 2015, we began to eke out a profit and began to turn the corner and dig ourselves out of a hole. Choose your metaphor. We stopped taking on water and sinking. We stopped the wildfire from spreading, began to contain it. We stopped the bleeding. And I mentioned we'd moved to a fiscal calendar beginning in January of 2016, which meant that January went from a 31-day month to a 28-day month. And then we had a really bad winter storm that month that knocked out deliveries for a week or so. And so we had not yet leaned out our operating expenses. So unfortunately, January 2016 was also an unprofitable month for us. It would be the last unprofitable month we would have until October 2023. Who knows what that month? The month of our cyber attack. A string of 91 consecutive months in a row of profitability. We have not had an unprofitable quarter since the second quarter of 2015, which is now a string of 40 quarters in a row. That includes remaining profitable through the bleakest times of the COVID pandemic in 2020, when we thought that breaking even in the second quarter of 2020 was going to be our best case scenario. But we also had to move to a temporary asset-backed lending bank in December of 2015, which had monopolized all of our finance team's time. So there was no formal budgeting process going into 2016. That year, the budgeting process was left to me. Charlie figured it out. And I had to go back through some of my documents from our performance group, as well as some of the industry's benchmarks. Honestly, I didn't really know where to start. It was above my pay grade. But I had to come up with something. And so you can call it back of the napkin budget. It was a fairly rudimentary but effective budget. I think I get criticized for having no budget, but it was effective. It was effective. It worked. Okay, so going into 2016, though, we had planned to close 2 stores for the first time ever. And we had to get lean to get healthy. So we first decided to close the Asheville store that we had acquired. It was a really low volume store, and there was only 1 year left of term on the lease when we acquired that market. And we were still delivering product to Asheville from Fort Mill, South Carolina every day. So we thought that it made sense to close Asheville and try to consolidate those revenues to Arden to get Arden healthier. Then a month later, we made the difficult decision to exit our original Matthews location. Really, we let Elevation Church acquire the entire property, as they had already acquired at least half of the property by taking over our former small warehouse space that was connected to our store in our former corporate office. The Matthews closure, where's Jose? There he is. He talked about this on this podcast, was another attempt to get leaner on our occupancy costs by allowing those sales to be picked up by Pineville as well as University. Pineville and University had both been identified as core stores, and they each had longer lease terms remaining on them. We also felt like they would be good candidates for remodels to the Ashley 6.0 model. And then we also had signed a lease in August of 2015 for a new 6.0 Ashley store in Durham. It would be our first 6.0 store. It's wild that we were even able to get approved for that location. Here's the story for that. We had done that deal with Kimco, the landlord, and I think they had seen our financials from 2014 and prior. They certainly didn't approve our lease on our 2015 performance. So we lost 8.5 in the first 6 months, and I think we made 2.5 in the last 6 months. So it was a loss of nearly $6 million, just $5.8 million for that year. There was some trepidation about even trying to grow and open a new store while we were going through all that. But I credit Jonathan for having the conviction to sign the lease in August of 15 and trust that we would figure it out. We felt like it was a good lease deal in a market that we needed to be in, and that it would be a low-risk entry into the market. Again, making a decision for the best long-term interest. By the way, you will notice in this milestone chart that there wasn't a new store open in 2017, just a grand reopening in Pineville. We needed a solid year or two of financial performance before we could get landlords to trust us again with a 10-year lease and giving us money in tenant improvement dollars. So 2016 would see the closure or consolidation of 2 stores, but the addition of 1 store in Durham, all in the first quarter. And I needed to figure out a revenue projection first in order to establish some semblance of a budget. So back to budgeting for 2016. This is our sophisticated back of the napkin budget. We had done $114 million in revenues in 2015, which included $49 million in the first half of the year and $65 million in the second half. I think the original, yeah. I had said, let me have a good, better, best, or a moderate, aggressive, conservative. So it was $120 million as the moderate level, $116 for the conservative model, and $124 for the aggressive model. And that was the 2016 budget. That was it. Very sophisticated. Just kidding. Even though it was rudimentary, it was effective. My approach was to apply percentages for departmental expenses to each area of the business, and somehow figured that we could get to like maybe 5% EBITDA at $120 million, or maybe it was a little bit more. I want to say it flexed up to 7% and maybe down to 4% on the good, better, best. And so I would bring each department leader in and said something along the lines of, hey, Workman, can you get operations to this percentage? Or home delivery expense to this percentage? Can you get salvage down to this number? Because that impacts margin. Do you think that we can get, Crystal, can you get customer service expense down to this percentage? Karen, can you get marketing to this percentage? Todd, can you get finance fees to this percentage? That was essentially it, one department at a time. And they would each really crush it. Once you kind of gave them clarity on, hey, what's the target? What are we going for? What's it mean? What's it matter? They would each crush it. So the power of transparency and alignment on the lead measures. Lost money in November and January, November 15, January 16, then went on a 91-month streak. So, this phrase, predictable financial results, is what we're after, the power of contribution margin, and our version of the great game of business. So we would add some BI reporting in the HFC KPI report in February of 2016. I credit Lee Vang and our BI team for really kind of helping us make sense of everything that was in Storis, and helped us add that layer of transparency that we needed so we could all kind of be playing on the same scoreboard. We wanted to get everyone aligned with the concept of secret sauce, and that included GPFF, gross profit minus financing fees, plus Dash, right? Plus delivery revenues. And we've been paying our HFCs on Dash, and for a period of time, like I said, also bonusing GMs on Dash. And this was also at the beginning of 16 when we introduced the concept of career pathing on the sales floor, when we switched from sales associates to home furnishings consultant, and we had and then over that 6-month period, we'd have our first experts class introduced. So HFA, HFC, HFP. And we would go on that year to do $127 million in revenue, beating our budget. So why is that important? It may seem trivial, but it was a really big deal. The ability to set and then exceed your financial budget is a magical achievement in a business. For one, it builds reliability, confidence, accountability, trust, discipline, stability, and predictability. We like the phrase, predictable financial results. You've got to be able to do what you say you're going to do and keep your promises. For another reason, there's contribution margin on revenues beyond your budget. In our business, we have a lot of fixed expenses and recurring liabilities. And once you cover those liabilities and recurring expenses, you start to add profit to the bottom line with every new dollar that you do. This is where the lion's share of the profit can be found in the lagniappe derived from the contribution margin. You might be operating at 6% or 8% EBITDA through your budget. And by the way, 6% is not really taking money home because you got to pay taxes, you got capital expenses that don't show up on that number. So that's like floating, treading water essentially. So you might be operating at 6% or 8% EBITDA through your budget, but then your contribution margin may be anywhere from 20 to 30% to the bottom line on revenues beyond your budget. The magic is in the delta, or the lagniappe, the extra revenues above and beyond your budgeted revenues, provided that you hold the line, of course, on your operational expenses and margins. And once we figured this out for ourselves and began to realize the magic of the delta between the financial budget and the retail budget, that's where we really wanted to share the spoils. Do y'all know what I mean when I say that phrase, share the spoils? Demonstrate mutual prosperity. Showcase a spirit of abundance. We don't want to just say it, that's where we wanted it to come to life. And we wanted to have fun with some big, bold bonus payouts, like jackpots. Because we also want to have fun in business. And that's where we really wanted to carve out our niche with our aggressive comp plans to reward the lagniappe in a shared prosperity manner. So doing $127 million while controlling OpEx when we budgeted at 120 was our very first foray into experiencing the magic of the lagniappe from a positive contribution margin of $7 million above our budget. It was really that simple. Our ability to fund what we believe are these really rich, handsome retail leadership bonuses are made possible from our discipline to our financial budget. When we have a financial budget, which we sometimes refer to as our bank budget, and then we have our retail performance budget, or what we call our retail goals. There's a small delta between the two budgets. The delta is the lagniappe, which is the extra that's above and beyond the financial budget. The financial budget sets our spend, oftentimes our discretionary spend, as well as our labor budgets, while the retail budget would create the delta to fund the exciting bonuses that we wanted to pay and the healthier commission levels. This is how we wanted to play the game. We referred to it as our version of the great game of business. We focused on the lead measures that drove profitability, and we would migrate into a much more formal budgeting process going into 2017. First and foremost, I really have to and want to thank Bill Woodman and credit Bill Woodman for our approach to modern day budgeting. He is the person who has really driven this discipline and muscle for us. And after having gone through the formal budgeting process now for several years, I have learned to really appreciate and love our budgeting process. Our bank loves it and calls us their gold standard client. Todd Wanick is impressed by it and has trust in our ability to achieve what we say we will achieve. Our track record is why we get called by Ashley and get approved for expansion opportunities. I'm going to share 2 very confidential documents with you guys. I'm going to let you pass around. The main thing you may want to focus on, you don't have to go through, these are 100-page documents. I don't expect you to go through every page. You may want to look at the commentary in the beginning, the executive summary. But I want to share with it so you can see the magnitude and really feel the magnitude of what we produce. I'll just go on either side, and you guys can, 2024 and 2025. Again, that's super, super confidential, and that's my copy, so it's got no secrets there. No pictures, please, of that. So those 100-page finished budget books, I think it's really a work of art, and it represents cumulatively hundreds of hours of collaborative work and analysis. Our process begins as early as late July and August when we begin planning for the upcoming year. Think of the financial budget as our commitment to our stakeholders. The financial budget sets our spend levels and sets our expectations for what we believe we will achieve with a high degree of confidence. We are not winging it. It is a very well-conceived and thoughtful approach to planning. It's not easy to do because we have to begin thinking about the new year well before we've even completed the current year or had the opportunity to see how we would perform in our biggest month of the year. We set our expected retail budget by determining conservative sales expectations on a per store basis, and we break those down by week as well. So, in thinking about a conservative approach to our retail budget, we're projecting where each store will wind up by the end of the year, as well as projecting our thoughts on traffic and SPG per store. Then the retail performance budget is established as a modest increase or subtle stretch goal above the conservative numbers, but what we really think we're capable of and can achieve. So it's not something we just come up with like to harm our people. It's what we think that our people can achieve. But we want to make sure that the conservative number, the bank budget, is the number that we're going to hit. We're going to take that to the bank, so to speak. The delta, again, between the two, the financial and the retail performance budget, that's where the magic happens. In a sense, our monthly and annual retail leadership bonuses are self-funded bonuses from the lanyap that will be created by achieving more than the financial budget. This plays into our spirit of abundance and mutual prosperity, as well as our performance mindset, but also our ability of making sure the business stays in business for the long term from a stability standpoint and a conservative planning standpoint. We know that when we achieve more than our financial budget, we'll compensate everyone at retail at a higher level than our peers in our industry. We've done the math, because we have the knowledge of our industry benchmarks and our experience from our financial comparisons from our years in our performance group, and we're okay with that. Because in those situations, the company is winning and doing well. We see it as being accountable to our desire for mutual prosperity and to our spirit of abundance rather than scarcity. In other words, it's not a zero-sum game. We can all win together. Plans are worthless, but the process of planning is everything. Or in other words, it's not the plan that matters, it's the process of planning that counts. So you can't get into this, you build this muscle of planning and forecasting. It's worth noting that throughout the year, things change and you can get new inputs of new knowledge or about the economy. So once you've been through the first few months of the year and assessed our financial optics, we'll then have the clarity to begin producing quarterly forecasts or rolling forecasts. Sometimes the forecasts are treated as extensively and as thoroughly as our annual budgeting process. Basically, it's about building the muscle of planning and predicting. We want to understand our lead measures, our dials, our inputs in order to have the most predictable financial results. When you might have macroeconomic shocks to the system like we had during COVID, or unexpected events like tariffs or price increases or new opportunities to assess, this is when forecasts and pro forma projections really come into play and when we need to consider adjustments to our budget. Or if you're going to acquire someone, you have to make a projection of what that's going to be worth to you when you inherit their cost structure, their leases, et cetera. Otherwise, we really try to stay true to living within our harvest and according to our financial budget. So what you're going to see here, we may start with a number. So in 2024, you can see we started with a number of 266. And so every month, Stacy and I will go through it, and then we end up with a number. We kind of keep track of, are we asking more or less? And you can see we actually gave less by $9 million. And we shared this information in January during our AMA calls. You guys remember that? So we actually said we lowered it. So we'll begin the retail performance annual budgeting process in the third quarter, and we'll try to finalize those numbers on a per store basis and a per week basis by the end of the third quarter, ideally. So from the conservative retail performance financial budget, we'll try our best to determine what a more moderate retail performance target or goal should be. I would estimate that the delta is generally about plus 7%, plus or minus 3%, from the bank budget or the financial budget to the retail performance budget. The science is determining what the delta should be and what's a fair spread. We continue to refine our approach here. We want more inputs because we know that this has such a trickle-down approach on our selling expenses and our bonuses for our retail leaders. For the past 2 years, in 23 and 24, we've had something occur that really we had not experienced in years. We missed our top line and our bottom line budgets 2 years in a row. We're not used to performance like that. We didn't think that we would maintain the torrid pace of the demand-infused pandemic years of 21 and 22, but we didn't think that our revenues would slide back as far as they did. And so I'm going to walk you through some of these slides here. Coming into 2025, so that one's a little bit of a tougher eye chart to see, but this is where we are on 25. You can see that we're holding truer right now, okay? All right, so these are per year overall revenues and selling expenses. Retail performance selling expense as a percentage of written revenues, okay? Because there's written revenues and there's delivered revenues. And where we performed as a company, you can see we got over 10% starting in 21. That goal would be an excellent home furnishings company. Okay, this may give you an easier eye chart. Selling expenses, this is above average. This is above industry average by at least 100 to 150 basis points, okay? And we're okay with that, because if the company's doing well, we want to share the spoils. In our best couple years, you know, we were still above average, but not as bad. And then you can see how it really started to spike, because our revenues started to decline, 289 to 255, 255 to 246, even though we're adding stores, adding costs. And our selling expenses really kind of stayed flat. Revenues going down, selling expenses staying flat. So as a percentage, they're going the wrong direction. That's what it looks like on a chart. Okay, so that's not sustainable. You can't have selling expenses. We're happy to pay people as much money as we're paying, but we need the company to perform a little bit better. That's the same message we gave 6 months ago in January. We cannot sell less and pay more. We have to continually improve. And by the way, you know, when this was happening, when we're paying the same, our partners in our other departments were not seeing the same. They were having their income cut or not increased. So the answer is increased revenues and margins. Stacy explained all of this during the AMA call back in January. So coming into 2025 with rising expenses, rising selling expenses against declining revenues, along with our stated goal to grow by 12% compounded annually in order to double our company's revenues in 6 years, because we want to go from 250 million to 500 million by 2030. We pushed the delta from an average of 7% to 10% this year. Bank budget 247, 10% up or 9.9% up is 272. 247, 25 million more, 272. You tracking with me? So the retail budget became 272. We did not think that that was unfair, but that is a larger delta than we typically have on a percentage basis. The previous 2 years, we broke one of our cardinal rules of holding firm on our annual goal for our retail performance team, and we lowered our levels considering our traffic declines and our other macroeconomic factors. But we really try not to break that rule. This year, we said that the retail performance target was going to be sacrosanct. It needs to be inflexible and unchanged. We need to hit that 272. We have high standards and a big vision to chase down. So our retail performance monthly budgeting process. Once we have our annual target established, this is also broken down by store, by week, which means that we have a projected sales goal for every store for every month. And then at the beginning of the month, Stacy and I look at each other, we do some analysis, and we have a starting number, the original starting forecast number, and we provide our own inputs for each store. We will include a myriad of factors and filters such as traffic trends, staffing levels, staffing changes, competitors, SPG, comp sales, remodels, renovations, new GMs, transfers, recent performance trends, the impact of new stores or cannibalization, et cetera. Some of these factors are really challenging to predict several months in advance. And we want to be fair. We want to be really, really fair. So we'll keep in mind various rules and guardrails, primarily pertaining to not having excessive comp increases or comp decreases, unless those are explainable. Generally speaking, we want to see stores either be ahead of the curve in terms of SPG and comp sales, or at least be growing SPG and comp sales. SPG is the North Star KPI in our minds. And comp sales is the traditional North Star KPI for retail. So they both count. We'll each determine our best estimate for each store's target for the month, and we'll set these in increments of $25,000. Why $25,000? Well, in the past, we had multiple approaches and even had times when we set monthly goals down to the penny. I didn't really like that much. I just prefer the simplicity and uniformity of keeping it at a $25,000 threshold at a minimum. So that's a personal preference of mine. It helps me keep it ordered to some extent in my head. I've done it many other ways, but I like this way much better. And then Stacy and I will see where we align and where we differ. We'll go through each store one at a time and discuss and debate each person's point of view. Many times we'll meet in the middle if we disagree. And other times, one of us will present a case that the other accepts, or one of us will feel more strongly about our position than the other. So we look and see where we're aligned. Okay, hey, we both agree 500,000 is the budget. Okay, that's easy. Hey, one person's at 550, one person's at 450. Maybe we meet at 500 after explaining our positions. And then along the way, we'll keep that tracker that I was showing you guys, or a log of how much we're holding true to our original forecasts. If we ask for a little more one month, then we may ask for a little less in a future month. Our goal would be that we end the year with the same annual goal as we started. So setting the sleep budget. We look at sleep as a separate business unit. We like to think of it as we're being in two separate businesses, the home furnishings business and the sleep business. But we want to set an actual number for sleep and not chase a percentage of total sales. However, when we set the actual number for sleep, we need to determine that store's monthly budget. And so we just take 20% of the store's budget for the month to determine their sleep budget. So it is always an actual number and not a percentage. Maybe there could be another way, more sophisticated way to calculate sleep budgets, but I think this is the fairest and most equitable way to go about it. So that's how we handle sleep budgets. Sales can cover a lot of sins. You can cover up a lot of mistakes with revenues. It is much more challenging to cut your way to success. When we were in the foxhole in 2015, Mark Dufresne was the CEO of Ashley Global Retail. Now, I had been in a performance group with Mark for many years and considered him not only a very close friend, but one of the smartest businessmen I'd ever met. And he definitely knows and understands this industry. He was in the meeting room with me, Jonathan Ishii, Todd Wanick, and Ben Thorud in late July 2015 at Vegas Market when we had to deliver the awful news to them about the first half of our financial performance. Mark made me produce like a 1,000-page extensive and exhaustive turnaround plan. I was like, I don't have any more hours in the day or week. I've got so many fires and things to address right now, and everyone is locked in and focused on what they need to get done. How in the heck am I going to add this to my freaking business plan, to my plate right now to deliver to him? So I complained about it, but I did it. I think I got Latrice Overton to help me with it. She helped me on some weekends, and we got it done. Now, why do I say this? Mark is a CPA by trade, and he has a very strong accounting background and knows expense management like the back of his hand. And it was in these meetings with him that he confirmed something that I knew and felt. But it was double reassuring and convicting to have it coming from him. He said, hey, Charlie, we're going through this 1,000-page business plan. And I'm saying, okay, where's he going to show the blind spots? Cut this, cut that. He says, Charlie, at the end of the day, you need to figure out how to bring in more revenue. Sales can cure a lot of sins and cover up a lot of other issues. I just thought it was so funny that this accounting CPA guy was just saying, hey, don't worry about the expenses. Go figure out how to get more revenue. So if you go back and look at those first 6 months of 2015, I mentioned that we had just done revenues of $49 million. Our budgeted plan that year had been $59 or $60 million for the first 6 months, if I recall correctly. So we had missed our top line by at least $10 million amidst all of our other issues. And so he was right. We needed to write more. That's part of what contributed. When you miss your plan by $10 million, you not only you get these losses. We needed to write more business and have it stick, not be canceled, not be returned, not be exchanged. So we have to become and make sure that we were a performance-based company with a retail performance and retail-first mindset. What we needed then was to be retail-first company, retail-driven, retail performance mindset. That was true then, and it is just as true now. Having a retail performance mindset gave us our focus, our North Star vision. We knew that there was meat on the bone for SPG for us. In 2010, our SPG target was 210, by the way. And our calling card for that year was 210 in 2010. Yeah, we got some stories. Okay, play the long game and win the day one day at a time. We also knew that we could continue to focus on driving down our occupancy costs, i.e. our rent, by exiting bad leases, renegotiating bad leases, or entering into better leases, as well as driving more performance on a per-store basis. That would drive our profitability. And we knew that if we could drive our profitability higher, we could ensure the long-term sustainability of the company, and we could reinvest in our people, our programs, and back into the company to fuel future growth and expansion. But we knew that it would take time, discipline, and consistency within a win-the-day framework and mindset to think long-term while acting with a sense of urgency to make today great, to win today, to make each day its own masterpiece, and then to stack the wins. Our budget discipline has served us well. From the brink of disaster, we put these disciplines in place, and I would say generally they've served us well. We do not always get it right or exactly right, but we continue to try to improve it along the way. I think we have some ideas about how we're going to enroll more people with our senior leadership team and improve our annual retail performance budgeting process going into 2026. But the delta between the financial budget and the retail budget is going to vary from year to year, and it will be based on various factors like what we need, what upcoming capital expenses we might have, what expansions or acquisitions we might have, where the economy is, what our debt structure is or our debt service is, what our outlook is, and how our performance has been or should be. But generally, we think that the delta should be between or within 4 to 10% of the financial budget. That's a fair, so again, 7% delta plus or minus 3%. We think that's a fair increase of light. And maybe we can prove where the percentage, as we do more revenues, can come down a little bit. We're certainly open to thinking about it to be as fair as possible. Again, our vision is to be the premier Ashley operator. So in conclusion, please keep in mind what I said in the beginning. We are striving to be a cut above in every aspect, to be the gold standard, to be the premier Ashley store operator, to pursue excellence, to pursue growth, to challenge ourselves. And this isn't for everyone, nor should it be easy, but it should be rewarding, emotionally and financially for those who are the high achievers. We very nearly lost it all. We've been the worst. We have no desire of returning to those days. We want to be the first. We rebuilt this company on a chassis of being people-centric and a chassis of purpose. A renewed people-centric approach with a heart for mutual prosperity and a spirit of abundance. And so Stacy has said, I've used this quote, and I just have to credit John Maxwell, love is acting in the long-term best interest of others. At the end of the day, unless we give you reason not to, I believe that you can trust us to continue to find ways to love you well, to win together, to share in the prosperity and abundance, and to continue to seek innovative ways and opportunities to invest more into you and into our compensation and rewards programs. In fact, if past is prologue, and if you look at our track record, I believe we have done just that, and I'm committed to doing that, to continue doing that. But you can also count on us to challenge you, to push you, and to set goals that are not intended to be layups, but ones that we will all be proud of when we achieve them. We won't bat 1,000. We won't be perfect. We won't always get it right, but we will do our best to listen to your feedback and to be open for business. I want to thank each of you for your tremendous leadership. I said earlier, you're champions. I mean that. Your commitment and your care for our company, our memory makers, and our guests, and really for each other. And I hope and pray that you give us a chance to love you well over the long term. I really think it will be worth it. And that's what I got for you. Okay, that was a lot. That's the end of the presentation that I gave to the general managers on July 10th at our GM RX meeting, our Retail Excellence meeting, our prescription to win the month. And our team is off to the races We'll have one more episode in this series on Thursday, a Q&A session. So I'm sure you might have some questions after watching this. And so you can hit me up or you can come back on Thursday and see what questions they asked that I answered. Hey, listen, we really appreciate our subscribers, our followers, our listeners. If you share the video or the podcast, that means a lot to us. And so wherever you're listening, feel free to shoot me a note, send us some feedback, let us know what other stories you'd like to hear. We're always open for business, and we love to get your feedback. And so wherever you are, if you're watching, if you're at the gym, if you're in your car, if you're on your at your desk, if you're at home doing the laundry or eating your oatmeal, I don't know, whatever you're doing, thanks so much for dialing in and checking us out. We try to bring you the freshest new content here from retail, from Stories from the River, every Tuesday and Thursday. We're in our 4th season, coming up at the end of the summer now. And so we'll come back on Thursday for episode 4, and check us out on YouTube, Apple, or Spotify.
Thanks for listening to Stories from the River. To check out more episodes, visit storiesfromtheriver.com. To watch this episode, go to youtube.com/@storiesfromtheriver. Join us again next week, and remember to like, rate, and subscribe to the podcast.